Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm Michael LeBlanc, NRF Top Retail Voice for 2026 and Rethink Retail 2026 Top Retail Expert. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. In this episode, I welcome back Rui Rodrigues, one of Canada's leading loss prevention experts and an executive advisor to the Retail Council of Canada. We talk about the rise of organized retail crime since he last joined me on the mic in 2021, why violence in stores is increasing, and how online marketplaces have become a distribution channel for stolen goods. Rui also shares how retailers, police, and government are working together more than ever to fight back and what real progress looks like. Don't miss the chance to hear more from Rui and other experts firsthand at RCC's Retail Secure Conference, March 11th to 12th, 2026. Register now to be part of the conversation. Rui, welcome back to the Voice of Retail podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, Michael. It's good to be back. It's been a little while.
It's been a little while. I checked. It's been, second year of COVID or early COVID. So I'm excited to get you back on the mic and catch up. You and I have caught up in person, but we haven't, so to speak, caught up on the mic for all the other folks to hear. You've been very, very busy. And if I may congratulate you in the work you do at RCC, very successful in prosecuting the policy and the work that needs to happen around loss prevention and asset management. So congratulations on everything you've been able to accomplish in the past couple of years since we've had you on the mic.
I appreciate that, Michael. I just say I might be the sticky glue that maybe gets people together, but as you know, it's a village. There's a lot of great retailers, executives in the LP space and across the country, our law enforcement partners for the last probably 3 years, and then in some provinces, even the government and prosecution. So all that to say, I appreciate it. However, there's a great bunch of folks working collaboratively across the country with a goal of improving the safety in our communities and obviously for their stores. So,
yeah, needs a great leader, though. You've clearly stepped into that role, and Kim being new to RCC as the president has really adopted that. I've seen. We were on a live stream yesterday, and she got the message quite loud and clear that this is a huge, huge priority for our retail members. So it's all falling in place. Now, obviously, we know each other. Obviously, you've been on the pod before, but and you and I first met, I think, where was I? I think it was in your office when you were at Staples, I believe, up in North Toronto when you were with them in LP. But not everybody might know who you are, what you do for a living, and your background. So tell us who you are, a bit about your background, what you do for a living.
Yeah, so I've spent 30 years, the better part of my career and life in loss prevention in Canada across various organizations. You mentioned one of them, Staples, Best Buy, Holt, Renfrew, the Bay. I've started consulting approximately 4.5 years ago, actually in the midst of COVID, and really enjoyed the work I do. So consulting allows me to focus on the retail space and work with mid, small size retailers, sometimes the larger ones who have unique challenges or problems that I can help them, whether it's loss prevention, risk management, things of that nature. Also work, of course, with clients like Retail Council of Canada, which was for me a great fit, hopefully for them, but also for me, because I've always enjoyed this work. I recognize that sometimes I get frustrated if I can't continue to move along the way I'd like to. And what this allows me is to work with retailers across the country, really in a space that I love, but in a collective way. So I feel like the efforts are much broader reaching, which maybe suits my ego a little bit, but it certainly brings joy. And hopefully that brings out the passion. So I continue to consult with other clients as well, again, primarily in that space. And also work with clients over the last few years. There's been a greater need for programs to protect their buildings, their people, as well as increase in the use of guards. So I work with some clients to fit them with the best possible guards. There's a lot of guard companies out there. But one of the things I do different is I act as a middleman between the retailer and the guard company to vet the appropriate people that would be a fit, train them up, and then continue to monitor and audit. So they're getting a bit of a different flavor than just a typical guard service. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Love doing the work. And as I said, it continues to fuel my passion of working within the retail space and the security space.
Right on. And like me, you are you play a role within RCC. As you say, they're a client of mine as well. It fits a level of expertise in an organization that is focused on advocacy, and it brings them an expertise that helps in some ways, as you were describing, being the middleware, so to speak, between retailers and guard companies. We're kind of the middleware between retailers and RCC members. Not that RCC needs us as middleware for members, because they're very member focused, but just to interpret these specialty kind of things. And as I alluded to off the top, that's the important role you've been playing. So let's get into this. And we actually, I was just checking, we spoke in July 2021, and well past or well before July 2021, organized crime, retail theft, violence was an issue of some degree, greater or lesser. So it's not a new issue. But I wanted to kind of touch base about your perspectives about what's happened since 2021 and what's escalated, what's got worse, what's got better, and basically what has changed in the interim time. And then we'll get into some detailed questions around ORC and particular safety issues. But just that big picture, is it better, worse, or the same than in your experience, long experience, in the past 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it's definitely worse. However, I caveat that with our collaboration is improved, so I'm optimistic, and I'll expand upon that. The opportunistic thefts have always existed and will continue to, and they typically made up a fairly large portion. We also obviously deal with organized crime. Mm-hmm. That is on the increase, and I'll explain a little bit more, I think, where that comes from. And then it's the increase of the prolific, violent repeat offenders that kind of plays in all of that and is increased as well. So post-COVID, as people resume, retailers open, resources were tied up and strained for sure at all levels, retail, police, and Crown. Everybody's catching up with a backlog. We certainly saw an increase of the repeat offender, we call it the revolving door of criminals in the retail space, where more than the essential services, obviously all of retail opens up. So everybody feels that increase of theft and the associated violence. Saw an increase in the drug epidemic across our country as well. So people dealing with other afflictions, homelessness, things in that nature. And as the crime increased and the lack of consequences for those crimes, meaning prosecutors are behind, police also stretch resources. A call to police previously, one officer might have been able to deal with. Post-COVID, with mental health issues and violence and things of that nature, you may have 1 or 2 officers grounded for hours with an individual. So all of that to say, the criminal, what they saw was even if they were arrested or detained, they were being released same day with conditions possibly not to go back to that retailer, not to reoffend, which of course they breached the same day. But what happened through all that, Michael, is that continued and the brazenness continued, and we failed to react quickly. Our laws are not equipped, and there's some changes are coming, but they're not equipped to deal with that. These individuals who steal under $5,000 each time are not facing indictable offenses. And with our laws of innocent till proven guilty, prosecutors are releasing them instead of holding them for trial. And then there's the perception that all of this was just property crime and victimless crime, so it shouldn't take up time of the prosecutor or a judge because it's not as severe as other matters that have been sitting pending to be looked at during COVID. So all of that created this perfect storm of lack of consequences, criminals becoming more brazen, feeling I get away with it, so why would I not continue? And then with that, we had this great expansion of the online marketplace. Of course, during COVID, people were seeing their items delivered to home. Well, this gave the criminal enterprises a new way of distributing their goods. So they can now prey upon marginalized individuals to steal for them, or if they themselves organize enterprises stealing, and distribute their goods through social media, online marketplaces, and have legitimate companies delivering them to people's doors.
I've always said that in conversations with people about this issue that the goods that are stolen by ORC, organized retail crime, versus these crimes of opportunities are only good if you can sell them, right? There needs to be a market. I mean, it's kind of capitalism in its sense. And the market has been provided by the platforms. We've seen tremendous. I remember in California, someone had opened an account on a platform. They were a 5-star rated retailer, and it was all coming out of like it was all coming out of Sephora. But they went on for years, and it was in the millions and millions of dollars. And I think that the U.S. has done something to try to hold the platforms to account in terms of know your client, right? I think they've tried to get at it that way, but it's a pretty pernicious challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the U.S. passed what is called the U.S. Inform Act.
Okay.
We've actually brought that up to federal government. Actually, last week we met in Ottawa with federal government. There were several CEOs from various retail organizations, some LP executives, members from cabinet, different ministries out there to talk through how do we collaborate more closely. And U.S. Inform Act was one of the items that we brought up because, to your point, it does put more onus on those folks that are setting up websites or setting up online marketplaces, the verification, validation, and that. And we need to do that. Like I said, it's created more avenues. So what we used to see and get reports from CBSA and our law enforcement partners, a lot of those stolen goods might be shipped offshore previously when they were in greater quantities, whereas now there's no need to do that, right? They can steal and redistribute through online marketplaces here, and they may be going offshore from here, but they don't have to ship them out in containers, so even those risks are lowered to them. So it's definitely become a growing concern. So the losses, Michael, continue to grow for sure.
Yeah.
Equally important, if not more so, has been the disruption and the community safety, where employees are dealing with violent repeat offenders, where businesses are being broken into quite regularly. The amount of disruption, the amount of harm they're facing, that some businesses have just closed up shop because it's no longer safe or profitable to operate in certain areas. So it's definitely a national problem. And
can I stick on that one for a bit? So it's perhaps, I think, two issues, but you tell me. One is this violence I'm speaking of particularly. One, what you said, the consequences are vague at best sometimes. But I do think, and I get this from talking to you as well, that it's a strategy amongst criminals as well as it is an outcome of, whatever social or legislative failures. In other words, the more violent I am, the more likely the associates are going to be told to leave me alone. Therefore, I'd call it a strategy. Would you agree in that assessment, or am I off base there?
No, you're absolutely right. And a lot of organizations post-COVID, even if they had been a hands-on type of organization, meaning they made arrests, shifted away from that because you don't know what the reaction is going to be of that individual. And for employee safety, even the loss prevention, security team safety, the choice was disengage, let the issue leave the store quicker, because the reaction could become quite violent. We see much higher utilization of weapons than we have ever seen in retail. And we're not just talking simple things, and they're not simple, but somebody producing a bear spray. We've seen guns, we've seen machetes. It's incredible the type of activities and incidents where weapons are used in retail. 7-8 years ago, you might hear about that once every few months. Now it's a daily occurrence. So all of that, certainly retailers relooked at it, and some who have contemplated going back, and some have gone back to making the arrests. It also forced a complete retraining of their team to be able to deal with that potential heightened risk, as well as assessing the individual, because somebody who's dealing with mental health and somebody who is dealing with a drug addiction may be displaying the same symptoms, and they certainly need to be treated differently because one person is not completely in control of what they're doing. So it's certainly become a much more complicated world when you're dealing with that offender coming into your location.
When I think of the outcome of these things, as you say, the victimless, so to speak, crime, is it still the case? It was when I was at RCC, there was this deliver forthwith problem in the criminal code where the retailers, in our case, were expected to deliver someone that they put their hands on and detained in the store, but it was their responsibility, so to speak, to deliver them to police. But police didn't have the resources to come get them. Is that still an issue?
Yeah. So within the criminal code, deliver forthwith to a peace officer is still part of the requirement, and it's interpreted differently by different individuals. So Some police services will say deliver forthwith means you called it in, you had ID, we verified, and we said you could release. Others will say, no, we have to have one of our officers, members, take that person into custody or come and deal with the person. The challenge is, even when a police service may adopt well, if we can do ID, we release, there's the question of who's liable. So if the person is released and something happens to them, the last person to release them was the retailer. So it also means the retailer has to be very comfortable to do that without delivering the person to an actual police officer. Sure, it's something we're looking at. We're working with the Manitoba government and WPS and other members there on, are there other things that can be introduced, a tiered level of policing, a different level of licensing, where it wouldn't require a full-fledged police officer for certain activities, that there could be, there's been special constables, things of that nature, that could deal with these things. Because if a retailer does make an arrest and detain someone, it could be hours. And we've heard of incidents, 6 to 8 hours before police can attend to take that person, which means
they got to feed the people. They got to take care of them, right? I mean, now they're babysitting, so to speak, somebody for hours, and you got to make sure they're okay, right?
Well, that, and you've kind of confined them for a little bit, so that's an issue. But at the same time, if you've got personnel you're paying for to be out on your store floor,
right,
to protect your people in shop, they're not doing that if they're sitting in a room for 8 hours. So it's not a great value.
Not a great outcome. Yeah, not a great outcome. So let's, there's been a lot of, I've been reading with, again, great appreciation and respect the work that's happening. You mentioned the Winnipeg, Manitoba. There's great work going on with the Winnipeg police, and I saw the premier even talking about this. I saw a picture recently with President Kim from RCC with the Ontario Premier. So can we talk about the progress that you're making? So we've outlined the issue, the challenges, and what's changed. Could you take us through a couple of the ways that, let's say, pick partners and, the Crown being the folks who prosecute the crimes? I sound like a Law and Order episode there. And the legislators, and then the frontline police officers. So where do you want to start? I mean, you've had a lot of what we would call wins in this battle for retailers.
Yeah, and I'll start back 3 years ago and rapidly move forward, Michael. With the first was getting the retailers together at that executive table to align on what are the most important common issues you want to work with, and proudly, as retailers are competitive in this space, clearly not, right? They came together. Quite a few executives, and very much agreed on organized retail crime, violence in our workplaces as a result of the people coming in perpetrating the crimes, and collaborating with our partners such as law enforcement, justice, and government are critical. Those were the three. So that was key. And those folks have stayed at that table continuously to advocate, drive with us for that message. That led to creating a national task force where we put an open call out to retailers, law enforcement to join for us to work together on actionable things we could do. That's now over 3 years old, and we meet every month. There's over 36 police services that are members of that task force.
Oh, that's
not
great.
Always there, but at Vancouver, Peel, Winnipeg came to the table immediately, and they've helped us bring others on. And retailers brought on, law enforcement agencies. They had connections to.
Sure.
And we started some key things. One of them, Michael, was what we call Project Retail Blitz. So 4 times a year, we actually plan activities that are targeted enforcement, where we organize with police. In some areas have Crown that is dedicated to those activities. And during that specific period of time, we share intel as to the most prolific repeat offenders we want to target, organized crime. Everybody works together to actively pursue the arrest of these individuals, share that intelligence so that there are aggregated charges being brought forward and the Crown sees the totality. What that's done is allowed the network to grow and the connectivity and an understanding for what retail crime truly is.
It's helped elevate the issue, right, to where it needs to be, right? And it's that coordinated, everybody moving in the same direction. It just creates, oh my goodness, this is a big problem when you kind of sit and focus on it. for a couple of days, right? A couple
And
of
to
weeks.
that, Michael, having people like in Manitoba, which has been very successful, having an executive table where Minister Weeb is sponsoring that table. We have the executive director of prosecutions. You have a retired chief justice, and then retailers at that table. It's really allowed the focus, as you say, on retail crime, and then others see that collaboration. So most recently, last year, in Ontario and then federally, it's been that advocacy with Premier Ford, Minister Kersner, Minister Downey in Ontario, and then federally with the Minister of Justice, Minister Sean Fraser, and then others. It took us having all that information, all the work we've done over the last 3 years that gave us the voice as well as the ability to demonstrate what is going on, to be able to go to our lawmakers, our legislators, and say, we need some changes. We need bail reform. We need to stop this revolving door, and we need the education to change that these are not victimless crimes. These are not just property crimes. There are people who are victimized and business being victimized, but these individuals are criminals. So, last year, at the end of last year, Prime Minister Carney made the announcement of the Bill C-14. The language we had been asking for, some of that is in there. The mention of organized retail theft, the reverse onus, sentencing guidelines. So when we met last week in Ottawa, I was really talking about this is great and a great thank you to government for introducing, and then talking next steps. We need to see the execution of this because legislation and law is just that, unless it's being applied.
Yeah.
So seeing the great work now with justice and the collaboration that is building with prosecutions, to continue to build on that education, that we look at the individual or individuals coming forward for their criminality and not look at it through the lens of it's just a retail theft or just a retail incident. So that is progressing. And it took all that great work we've been doing collectively to be able to have the ammunition, the stories and the stats to demonstrate the true impact.
Yeah. Well, and with my experience at Retail Council, for those who are listening to this episode who may not have the same appreciation of how hard it is to get your agenda, your perspective to senior government officials, because they've got a lot on their plates, right? They're dealing with container crime. They're dealing with, they're dealing with car theft. They're dealing with a whole other bunch of bad things as well. So it's a real important milestone. Now, you mentioned the Peel Police. I noted that the Peel Police were speaking at an event coming up next week. Let's talk about Retail Secure. So we're talking the week before the event, and I wanted to get from you and your perspective about what's great. Maybe there's some folks listening who might want to attend. Tell us all about the conference and what's going on. And it's 2 days now, and give us the 411.
Yeah, so you mentioned one key thing. Our members and others have always asked for a bit more, so we've extended to it 2 days, which is fantastic. So it's March 11th and 12th. On the 11th, we've got some concurrent workshops. So the intent is really educational, giving people something they can tangibly learn and walk away with. And that's fantastic. Two great topics. One is on the investigative process and, making and putting together a great package that will get the attention of prosecutions. The second is really dealing with the privacy landscape, safety within our environments, and how to navigate the info sharing and that, which are very key topics right now. And then on the 12th, of course, we have the full conference.
Yeah.
We've got some great speakers lined up. We've got Chief of Police for Peel with one of our senior VPs from Loblaw, Dean Enrico, who are doing a great session, talking through challenges from both levels, but also sharing best practices. We've got a great ORC project that we will be going through the entire timeline of what occurred that Hamilton Police will be sharing, which was recently wrapped up. So the content is one that members always talk to us about and want to hear about. But we've also got great speakers that come from those worlds who are, real case. The other I would say is over the last couple of years is the conference has grown to beyond just the loss prevention, asset protection practitioner, because one, the element of community safety, it certainly appeals to human resources and other folks and operators. The fact that there's so much technology being involved now in privacy, it appeals to general counsels, chief privacy officers, IT people. And then, of course, law enforcement, who's become a great partner. We see more and more law enforcement partners who attend our conference because of that connectivity that we've been built. So of course, as you can imagine, over 2 days, it also creates a great opportunity for networking, for people who may not see each other throughout the year to get together, share some best practices, connect, and hopefully walk away with a few things they've learned. So I would imagine is going to be one of our best conferences to date, one for the lineup as well as the topics and the people delivering them.
Now, the other thing I noticed, and I think this is such a brilliant idea, is that there's opportunities for a lower cost ticket, so to speak, so that the teams can bring more junior members for both their own networking and also some mentoring. I think that was a brilliant idea because, at director and above or whatever kind of level from a decision maker perspective is great in one way, but I think you've done a great job and Michelle and the team at RCC in building an agenda that actually brings new people, younger people likely, or newer people to the LP into the fold. Of course, they will be the decision makers of the future, but also just a great way to bring the whole team to bear at a learning session. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a topic for the Loss Prevention Advisory Council, the executives that make up that council. Mentoring is something that's been clearly identified. And, what we've been more and more aware of, some of us are getting a little older. And what we learned when we started, you kind of hit the ground running and you cut your teeth, and networking is huge. And with law enforcement and prosecutors, and we just find some of that art is lost. And some of the more senior folks certainly been chatting about, as the new LP, AP folks who come into the space who are maybe don't have the same time or connections, we need to teach them because we know what works. What works a lot is human-to-human interaction, is building those networks, of sharing. But as you know, Michael, retail is very busy. It's doing less with more. Yep. Teams are stretched. And where I may have had time when I was a director to have networking time, it was actually on my job description to spend time with RCC, to spend time with colleagues in law enforcement. If that still exists on people's JDs, they don't have the time because they're so busy. So
it's just harder to come by, right? That kind of time is just harder to find. So it's great that you and RCC have crafted it right in. Now, last question for you. Thank you. You've been very generous with your time. Let's say you and I are having this conversation in another 4 years, hopefully earlier. But let's just say it's 4 years from today. What would you have hoped that had happened from whatever legislative perspective or from a perspective that's helped the retailer? Where do you hope to be in 4 years?
It's a great question. So legacy work, one of the things I hope dearly comes out of it is that the connectivity that we've created sticks. So having formal structure within police to have retail crime units, within justice to have dedicated crowns attached to retail crime, and that focus stay there. Because as the ebbs and flows go, we need static. So traditionally things are done on the corner of somebody's desk who is passionate about something. We need it to be something that is structured. So that's one. And then legislatively, one, that the current amendments that are coming in will deal with what it is, but that we continue to have those conversations about assessing, do our laws still fit what is happening? And we need to be quicker at adopting those to be able to give the tools and resources to crowns and law enforcement to prosecute the criminals that need to see consequences to those actions. And then hopefully it also sends a message to international criminals that Canada is not a soft target, because today they see it as a soft target because our laws don't hold them here. And there's a lot of good products they can steal here. So all of that together hopefully makes Canada a very safe and inviting place for legitimate individuals and not so inviting for criminals. And that we can continue to make sure, as I said, there's structure, that there's always that collective work because retail is on every corner, right? It's a big space and we absolutely need to make sure there's always a focus on it.
Now, if people want to get a hold of you, maybe they're RCC members or maybe they're a retailer that is interested in learning more about what you can offer them to help them with their LP opportunities or challenges, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I through RCC, if it's work RCC, they can email me at rrodriguez@retailcouncil.org, and it's Rodriguez with an S, not a Z. And then if it's consulting work, they can also reach me at rui.rodriguez@rucaconsulting.ca, where I'm happy to meet with them, assess their needs, and see if I'm the right person to help them.
Well, Rui, such a treat to catch up. I have a real interest in this file for sure. I have a have a background, I have a degree in criminology, so it's always been of great interest to me, and professionals like yourself and the great work that they're doing, and how interconnected in the criminal justice system the work needs to be to solve these broader issues. So thanks for coming on and sharing all about that. Once again, if you're in the LP field and you didn't know, RCC conference on next week in Toronto. Be sure and get your tickets. Still some tickets available. And if you're listening to this after that week and want to learn more about LP and the work RCC does, go to retailcouncil.org. There's lots of content there. Or as Rui said, get in touch with him. So Rui, have a wonderful rest of your day. I know in the run-up to these conferences it's super busy. So once again, thanks for carving out some time to talk with me.
Appreciate it. I'll see you on the 12th at the conference.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker. If you want more content or chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.